Hello team, and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Piz. I just wanted to do a short video on the success of the Operation Spiderweb mission, whereby all of those drones were released by the 4 different air bases, and there was much destruction of strategic long-range bombers. Last night, the Russians replied to the Operation Spiderweb, and we know that last night was the reply because they've admitted this. So this is a translation from the Russian Ministry of Defense, and indeed this pro-Russian source says Russian Ministry of Defense last night in response to the terrorist acts of the Kiev regime. So we understand the Russians call the Ukrainian missions terrorist attacks. The Russian armed forces launched a massive strike with high precision long range air, sea and land based weapons, as well as attack drones against design bureaus plus. Now, I don't think that there was a huge amount of success in Russia's attacks last night. There's a lot of civilian infrastructure that was hit. There would have been military targets hit, no doubt, but actually there was not too much evidence of that. The number of drones and missiles that were taken out was actually really good. There was a much better interception rate, and that would be predominantly because they were aiming at the main cities. And when the Russians aim at the main cities, the Ukrainians have much better interception rates because that's where most of their decent air defenses are. Is when they aim those drones at near the front line, like Kramatorsk, Sloviansk, Konstantinivka, sorry. Those places do not have the high quality air defenses much closer to the front lines. You then start seeing sort of 35% success rate for Russian drones getting through Ukrainian air defenses. So this is the automatic translation from the Russian MOD. Last night, in response to the terrorist acts of the Kiev regime, the Russian armed forces launched a massive strike with high precision long range air, sea and land based weapons, as well as UAVs, against design bureaus, enterprises for the production and repair of weapons and military equipment of Ukraine, assembly shops for attack drones, flight training centers, as well as warehouses of weapons and military equipment of the Ukrainian armed forces. Then it ends with, the strike target has been achieved. All designated objects have been hit. Okay, so the Russians are claiming that last night's attack was in response to Operation Spiderweb, and that they achieved their goals. So let's just look at the figures then. 452 aerial threats were taken out. So 407 drones were sent into Ukraine. 368 were taken out. 199 shot down, and 169 suppressed by electronic warfare. That's not bad interception rate compared to what we have seen, but it obviously still a number got through. 4 out of 6 Iskanders got taken out, so that's good. Only 1/3 of the Iskander M, those are ballistic missiles, successfully got through, and 30 out of 36 KH-101 cruise missiles were taken out. That's not too bad at all. 2 Iskander K cruise missiles and 1 KH-31P anti-radar missile got through. So there's a 0% interception rate of the single one of those missiles. But the point I want to make today is twofold. One, we know that Operation Spiderweb was a success because there were far fewer missiles sent. But it's not just the missiles sent, or in fact, the number of missiles sent is a direct result of the number of planes being sent into the skies to fire these missiles off. There were far fewer planes sent. Why? Because Operation Spiderweb was a success. But also we understand that the type of planes that we used also indicates a success of Operation Spiderweb. Okay, first of all, let's look at the stats, the numbers. I'm going to get rid of my head here to show you, and the numbers from last night haven't yet materialized on the data, because when you look at the General Staff data, they cut off from the middle of the night before, pretty much. I don't know exactly what time it is, to the middle of the night of the night in question. So last night's data has no cruise missiles on there. That will be because they would have cut it off at maybe, I'm just making this up, they cut it off at midnight, and then actually all the cruise missile attacks happened at 3 o'clock in the morning, for example. And so they will appear tomorrow. So just remember that when we look at the cruise missile success rate. Remember, these are numbers of cruise missiles, and I presume this includes ballistic missiles. I've asked Dell that before, and I think it does. These missiles are the ones that are taken out, so there'll be more fired. But the point is that last night there were only how many missiles sent? 36, 42, 44, 45. So 45 missiles sent. And how many were taken out? 36 were taken out. So you will expect to see tomorrow a number of 36 on this this graph. Now 36 exists, right? 20, 30, 36 is going to be about here. Now, compared to the rest of the war, that is not that impressive. You have nights where 112 missiles were taken out, 103, over 80, over 80, over 80, and then all of these over 60, and then all of these over 40 there. And then actually over 36, you'll have a few others thrown in as well. In other words, this last night's activity sits really quite far down the top like 20 attacks so far in this war. Now, if last night was the reaction to what the Russians would perceive as horrific terrorist attacks, some of the most successful operations, if not the most successful operations the Ukrainians have done, then the Russian response, which was telegraphed by Putin through Trump, and Trump's like, I told him he shouldn't do it, bigging this up as to be some like massive retaliation. The Russians have admitted that was a retaliation, and they admit that job done. So now you can imagine there isn't going to be any more retaliation. The strike target has been achieved. All designated objects have been hit. They might do another attack tonight, but you'd expect that last night's one was the big one. And the big one meant that, quite a lot of drones were sent in, but that wasn't a record. And a medium amount of cruise missiles and ballistic missiles were sent in. Okay, now let's look at some of the claims then surrounding this. So after Spiderweb, said Max 25 this morning, referring to Defense Express, after the Spiderweb operation, Russia was able to raise only 7 bombers for the attack. The enemy was able to use 5 Tu-95MSs and 2 Tu-160s, and they loaded them with missiles to the maximum. So previously, each bomber usually carried about 1 to 3 missiles, keep it safe and whatnot, but they actually loaded an average of 5 missiles on these and sent them off. And obviously, they've got ships and submarines from the Black Sea probably throwing out a few too. So that's interesting. Far fewer planes took off to do what you would think would be the biggest attack of the war from the Russian point of view. But it wasn't only the number of planes, but the type of planes. So as you notice, there were 2 Tu-160 bombers used there. These are big old planes. So Euromine Press reports Russia's Tu-160 bomber use in missile attack last night proves that the Tu-95 shortage after Operation Spiderweb, according to Militiani. To launch 36 cruise missiles, Russia had to use more costly and complex Tu-160s alongside their Tu-95s. They involved these Tu-160 strategic bombers in last night's attack, according to the Ukrainian Air Force. Usually only older Tu-95 aircraft carried out such attacks. Now both Tu-95s and Tu-160s were used to launch 36 KH-101 cruise missiles. Militiani notes that the use of the Tu-160s in such attacks is unusual and signals a potential shortage of Tu-95MS bombers, which are typically used for these operations. So on June 1st, says Militiani, Ukraine carried out a sophisticated drone attack targeting Russia's aging Tu-95 and Tu-22 bombers, key platforms used to launch cruise missiles at Ukrainian cities, while notably omitting the Tu-160s. The current use of Tu-160s, Moscow's primary nuclear-capable bombers for cruise missile strikes, may indicate a growing shortage of operational strategic aircraft and a reliance on more costly, less efficient platforms. So they used bombers that would normally, like they don't use them for nukes, but they are the nuclear-capable ones, I presume, but they weren't actually targeted in Ukraine's attacks. Now, Russia has been forced, it appears, to use those older, bigger planes, less efficient, more complex ones. According to Militiani, Tu-95MS bombers are generally favoured for missile strikes because of their higher airframe and engine longevity, which is attributed to several factors: lower flight load, simpler construction, use of turboprop engines, and suitably for long-duration patrol missions at cruising speeds of approximately 750 kilometers at altitudes of 8 to 10 kilometers. These conditions impose less wear on the aircraft compared to supersonic flight. The Tu-160 is faster and more powerful than the Tu-95s, but is significantly more complex to operate, according to Militiani. It features variable sweep wings, which will require additional mechanical systems, and it is designed for supersonic speeds that place heavier structural loads on the airframe and engines. These factors result in faster degradation during service and much higher operational costs, both in fuel consumption and maintenance. So there you go. Ukrainian Trojan horse operation Spiderweb likely caused this Tu-95MS shortage. So Militiani says the increased use of the Tu-160 bombers is likely the result of losses sustained during the Ukrainian Security Service, the SBU's operation Spiderweb. During that operation, at least 8 Tu-95 bombers were reportedly hit, either destroyed or damaged, on Russian air bases, and claims have been higher as well. Per Militiani, the following Tu-95 aircraft were identified as damaged or destroyed, and there's a list there. So here we have evidence that Ukraine were successful in the number of cruise missiles fired, the number of planes firing those cruise missiles, and the type of planes used for those cruise missiles. Conclusion: Operation Spiderweb was a great success. And there you go. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe and share. Really appreciate your support. Take care. Speak soon.